like The Masquerade Is Over, I've played that for many vocalists, but I'd never sung it before I sang the demo. And many of them were just like that. A lot of them I didn't know. The Billy Joel one, I didn't know that very well. I had to kind of learn that. And one of the Duke Ellington songs, I didn't know very well.
Georgia on My Mind?
Yeah, I used to do that on my show before I did this album. That was my dad's favorite song, and one of mine, actually, too. I was a big fan of Hoagie Carmichael, so I may have seen it in a movie or something. I don't know. I joined the Columbia Record Club and for some reason got in the jazz category, which I'm not really a jazz person at all, but I got Benny Goodman records and J.J. Johnson and Kay Winding and Miles Davis and a bunch of records that, you get about 6 free when you join that club.
Right.
And so I don't know. I listened to some of them. Then there was a place called the Momar Club in Tulsa that was a jazz club, and they had jam sessions on a Friday and Saturday that started about midnight and went to about 10 in the morning. And I'd go out there and listen to those guys. A lot of the guys that went out there played in Leon McAuliffe's Hillbilly Band. A lot of the Hillbilly Band musicians were really jazz musicians. Of course, they couldn't get any jobs playing jazz, so they played hillbilly music. And then so they went out to the Momar Club and played jazz for 8 or 10 hours. So I learned a lot listening to those guys.
Those are 2 great insights into your background, and I like that. You're saying essentially, if I'm reading you right, on the Columbia Record Club, that it was you weren't soliciting the material, but this variety that just came automatically actually ended up playing a role in shaping your musical vocabulary.
Yeah, I think so. I really had not been crazy about jazz. I wouldn't let my kids say the word because jazz seemed like the spontaneity of creating a melody at the expense of time and many other things really bugged the shit out of me. I didn't like that, I don't know. I've gotten much more and not quite so prejudiced in my old age.
That's funny. Well, there are just some people to some people, jazz is a dirty word. Is what you're saying?
Yeah, I was one of them. Back when I was a kid, I got mad at Nat Cole because he didn't sound black enough to me. You know what I mean? Then later on, when I matured and grew up somewhat, I heard the King Cole Trio, which is some of the most astonishing piano playing on the face of the earth, which was piano, drums, and guitar. And, same thing with Lou Rawls. I played on a lot of his records, and I don't know. I mean, I was racially prejudiced in sort of a backward way. I didn't much care for black singers that sang like white people.
Just a lot of evolution and change. And do you keep in touch with Elton since doing that project, which got you so much notoriety and certainly must have been fun? Have you guys stayed in touch?
Well, not really. I mean, Elton is not really an in-touch guy. As far as, as I was concerned, he called me up and I was watching a soap opera, and I hadn't spoken to him in 35 years.
Wow.
He said that we should do an album together, and he actually was on safari in Africa, which he apparently does every year. And he got to thinking about me and got very emotional and thought that he had not kept in contact enough. And so I don't know. He's a remarkable guy, really. He's the only guy that I know personally that can sell out 20,000 seats 7 days a week all over the world. I mean, it's a pretty good trick, really. And
it's kind of a tribute to you that he was thinking of you in the midst of a safari in Africa.
Yeah, right. I could have been a lion or anything.
You know what I mean? He's staring at a lion and thinking about Leon. Any memories of that collaboration that just stick out as we talk about it?
I just had gotten out of the hospital. I had some surgery done, and I got there about an hour late, and Elton had written 5 songs while he was waiting on me to get there. And it's I don't know, he's a remarkable, he not only can write the songs very fast, but he can remember them. Speaking for myself, I can't remember anything. I mean, that's why I have to, I can't remember the first verse when it's time to repeat it for the second verse.
Well, you live in the moment. Ram Dass would say that's the way to do it. Be here now.
Well, I'm afraid I'm not quite as up to it as Ram Dass, but mine has to do with more like brain failure.
Right. I was trying to dig out the positive for you.
Oh, well, I appreciate it.
I knew where you were headed. Same with the new record. I guess I just look at the, it's a different cast of, it's a different layer of music and a different way of doing things. But when you think about Life Journey, anything about putting it together that you're very proud of, or maybe a challenge in doing it, or something that occurred to you in the process that was new over all these years?
Well, the title occurred to me as we were doing it. I mean, we started out, Elton sort of insisted that I have a producer. I had two record company presidents come up to me at the same show and said they wanted a Leon album, and I was, I said, okay, I'm ready to do it. So I called up Johnny Barbas, who was my manager at the time. I was also Elton's manager, and told him that I wanted to do it. And he said, well, Elton wants you to have a producer. Well, I'm not a guy that has producers.
Right.
There's been people that had their names on my record, but they many times weren't even there.
Right.
But I couldn't really think of anybody. I've worked for many of the biggest producers in the world, and I have to tell you, there's a lot of bullshitters in that category. And it's just a few that I can count on one hand that I thought really knew something. So I was getting ready to go over to Montrose, and I met Tommy over there. I'd, of course, known Tommy for 45 years, and he cut one of my songs that launched George Benson's career. He cut Diana Krall, and he's just cut so many jazz artists. I was afraid there might be jazz damage there. I was really scared of it. And
jazz damage, I like.
When we started talking, I found out that he was a blues hound like myself. He knows all about it and where the bodies are buried, and it was great fun. He's the best producer I've ever worked with, and I'm happy to say that he did my album because I really worked with some stinkers before.
And it's great that you can find, the success can be waiting around any corner, really. It's not limited to a select group of characters.
Yeah, it was great because it was kind of tough because this was about a 25-piece band, and the writer of the band used to play bass for Count Basie. I happened to mention when I was talking to Tom in the preliminaries that I was a big fan of Basie, and when I was playing my piano parts, I was basically playing Basie parts behind my vocals. That's what I was imagining that I was hearing. So the next thing I knew, I had a Basie arranger and his bass player, and the guy that was playing drums it's his orchestra too. He played for Oscar Peterson. I had all these jazz giants in this band. I was really scared to death. I was really outclassed. But it was great fun. I mean, in many cases, I was having to read the melody and the chord sheet, watch the conductor, and sing and play for the first time some of those songs, except for the time I'd made the demo to send to Tommy. So there's one of them. I can't remember what song it was. I said, Tommy, I can't play and sing and watch the conductor at this. I'll just have to sing and I'll have to play later. But it was a handful.
I like how you kind of come full circle with the Jazz Cats, yeah? Yeah,
I think so. I mean, I was very proud to have that caliber of band. I mean, the first run through that studio, I played on 18 Yellow Roses there with Bobby Darin and, I can't remember, many Lou Rawls sessions.
The lessons, I guess, you get out of doing sessions like that where things click, things work.
I've had studios in my houses for 45 years. I've had 15 of them altogether. And I had to go through all that before I realized that it wasn't the studio, it was the guy that was operating it, because I'd sit there for weeks and months waiting for inspiration. I didn't know how to write without inspiration, and I finally figured out how to do that. When we were playing in the studios in L.A. with those guys, I mean, there's some remarkable guys. I got to play with Howard Roberts and Barney Kessel and Joe Pass and Tommy Tedesco, just incredible players. And they were all talking all the time about George Benson. He said, why can't George Benson have a hit record? That guy is so remarkable. And there it was. I mean, his career got launched with my song. I was so proud of that. But they also talked about the Nashville session guys. They say it's amazing. Those guys get together and talk for 5 minutes and choose a bunch of numbers. They have a number system down here. And so I was taking a car back to Tulsa from L.A., and I thought, well, they always talk about the Nashville guys are always ready to play. They just walk in and play and make masters, and it's great. And I thought, well, I'm ready to play. And so I stopped at some truck stops, and there were about 1,000 hillbilly cassettes in there. So I bought a couple $100 of them. They were like $3 a piece. So I was listening to them all the way home and picking out the songs that I knew. And I thought, well, I'll go down to Nashville and cut with those guys, which I did. And it was a remarkable experience. I cut 27 songs in a day and a half. And one of the fiddle players said, boys, if you want to get on this record, you better play it right the first time because he's moving real fast. But they didn't even know that I played piano till the second day. I was just singing. And it was great fun. I mean, they were ready to play. A lot of times the producers down here have them play stuff again and again, and it would be there in the first take. And it was there. I mean, 90% of the ones I did were one take.
Do you think that that's the kind of thing that made you in demand with Cats? You had this approach, you had a lot of different variety with the influences, so that when you hit the studio, you were sort of well-armed, for lack of a better way of putting it. Well,
I was well-armed if they understood what I did. But actually, I wrote a song called Song for You rather early on. And what I was trying to do was trying to write standards at that time, because gets recorded by so many people, make huge money. I was trying to write a blues song that Frank Sinatra and Ray Charles could sing. And that was the guideline for writing that song. And I think somebody told me recently it's been cut over 300 times. So that qualifies as a standard as far as I'm concerned. I was happy to get that. Masquerade has been cut many times too. So they're funny song standards. You know, when you hear them for the first time, there's not much there really. But every lounge lizard in the world cuts them before it's all over with, and so they just get, become standards.
When you say standards, it's on your website right on the header at the top, and these words, I just wonder where exactly they came from, if you have any kind of, or you can draw a little bit deeper into them. I'll love you in a place where there's no space and time. I'll love you for my life. You are a friend of mine. Some deep stuff.
I wrote that song in 10 minutes. I wrote it for somebody that I had an argument with that I didn't want to have an argument with. I wrote that song so I could sing it for him. And so I don't know. It's just...
I love that. So that's a forgiveness? That's a forgive me, or...
Well, I didn't say that, but I just sang the song. The person was very instrumental in teaching me about songwriting and writing in general.
That's a great way to do it, though.
Yeah, and also writing the truth. And I don't know, I'm like in working with Elton. Elton is very fast, and we did a piece of a song from Mighty Hannibal, and we put a different verse on it. And Elton said, here, write a verse to this. And so I wrote it, and it took about 5 minutes. I handed it to him. I said, here it is, write the melody. And he looked at it and wrote the melody in about 5 minutes. And I mean, he's great to write with. He's very fast. I don't like to get in Nashville. They got this thing where a bunch of them make appointments for Thursday, and they get together, and there's 4 or 5 of them, and they argue about adverbs and stuff. And that's not for me. Somebody sends me words, and I write music for it and send it back, and they can use it or change it or whatever they want to do, but I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to argue about it. It is what it is.
That's funny. A little conference committee about the dissection of the linguistics. That's good stuff. Well, English teachers would certainly appreciate that.
Say that again?
I said English teachers would certainly appreciate that they pay that much attention to the.
Well, I guess so. I mean, I started researching right about before the wedding album. I said, I've got to learn how to write songs. I can't sit around for months and years and wait for inspiration, because there's not always going to be inspiration. And I wrote a book, I think it was titled How to Write the Popular Song. And I did all the things that they said to do, and I can write you one right now. It taught me a lot about writing. They said the main problem about writer's block is people try to be the performer and the audience at the same time. So it's impossible. You can't do that. So you got to get up every day and write for 2 hours and don't read it. Don't read it for 2 weeks. And when you read it 2 weeks later, then you can change it into song form. And that really helped me immensely. As a matter of fact, many people that I told that to Edgar Winter. He said, "Oh, no, I couldn't do that. I couldn't do that." I said, "Well, what's the matter, Edgar? Are you afraid you spill the beans or what?" Same thing with Bruce Hornsby. I told him about that, and he says, "Oh, no, I don't think so. I don't think so." But I think he writes maybe exclusively like that now. He just sits down and writes it, which is it's amazing. I wrote one with Mike Keith yesterday. I'm sorry, Mike Reed. He was a football player for Penn State, but he wrote "I Can't Make You Love Me If You Don't" for Bonnie Raitt. Great songwriter.
That's a killer song. I love that tune.
He's a great lyricist, a great musician. I was talking to a friend of mine about him, and I said, I can't imagine a football player writing those great songs. And he said, well, he does have a music degree, too. So it was great fun working with him, but he was very resistant. He said, I can't do this. I've never done this before. And so I wrote 4 songs, melodies, in anticipation of meeting him. And I finally got him to write words for one. He wrote it in about 30 minutes. And I said, Mike, we got to get going faster. We've been here for an hour and a half. We've only got one song. So he said he really enjoyed that, like he had never done anything like that in his life. So, there's all kinds of ways to skin a chicken, I guess.
As a final note, when thinking about that, is that the ultimate? I get discipline out of that story. I don't know if that's the right lesson. I'm searching for the lessons out of talking to you. Is there a secret to that? Is that the rhythm there? Have discipline in in your craft?
Have discipline, do you say?
Yeah, it seems like you just, when it came to that songwriting approach, that you just said, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to hammer it out, and I'll use this routine, and I won't go back and listen to it. And that way, by doing that, discipline is what I thought. It sounded like you just hammered it every single day, and by doing that, you forced the material out of yourself or helped to conjure it.
Well, it's more like it exuded. I mean, it wasn't a forced deal at all, but I read it. I found it from that book.
What's the name of it again?
I'm thinking it's called How to Write the Popular Song, but that may be incorrect. I don't know. It's been a long time. I looked for it again. I never could find it.
Well, that'll be a little mystery thing that people can go out there and try to find as a result. I leave you with this thought: when you're in town doing your gig, if you have any time and you feel like it in Honolulu, we have a really nice space, kind of like a little mini Austin City Limits. It's great with or without an audience. Love to record a little follow-up thing for you for All Things Considered. It's a big NPR show here in Hawaii, and a lot of people listen to it who really appreciate your music. I just put it in your head if you're in.
Well, you have to come pick me up. I don't have a car with me.
my boss would come pick you up. We'd love to come fetch you and bring you.
Sure, I would love to do that.
Okay. Well, should I reach out to who should I talk to make that happen? Bob Stinson?
He's not going to be in Hawaii. There's the day-to-day guy is named Paul Lee.
Can Bob put me in touch with him?
Probably, or you can just find him at the gig. You just show up. He's be setting up the stage.
What's his name again? Paul
Lee, yeah.
Paul Lee. Okay, we'll put it in your mind, and because I just want to set it up with you in advance, so I can at least. What should I just come there and grab you after your sound check or something, or what works?
Well, I don't do sound check myself, it depends on how far it is away from the venue.
Okay, well, I'll work with the promoter Les, who I know very well, and I'll tell him that you're up for it. And so just remember, it's me, Hawaii, the public radio station.
Okay, well, you have to remind me. I can't remember.
No, I know that. Don't worry about that. But I'm saying, I mean, if you're into it, I'm going to reach out. I'll at least tell Bob, too. I'll tell him to try to put me in touch with Paul Lee, and that way I can work with him in advance to make sure it's nice and comfy for you.
Okay, that'd be great. Aloha, everyone. This is Leon Russell, and you're tuned to Dave Lawrence. It's All Things Considered on Hawaii Public Radio.
Thank you very much, Leon, and I'll see you when you get to town, and I'll give you a hug again. Thank you. It was wonderful talking to you. It's very inspiring. You have a great way about you. I hope you had fun. Hope this wasn't a hassle.
No, I'd love to do this.
Cool.
It keeps me from having to have a real job.
Me too, brother. Me too.
All right. Thank you.
Be safe. Talk to you soon.